Hello again. So Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula says that laws around access to alcohol need to be reviewed. This follows the death of 3 Tshwane Metro police officers in a head-on collision at the weekend during a high-speed chase. The driver of the vehicle was also killed and was apparently drunk. We get you now what needs to be done in terms of policy changes around South Africa, at least in terms of curbing this issue of alcohol abuse in South Africa. We're joined by the Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance's South Africa Director, Maurice Smithers. Maurice, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So, if we talk about the current policy where alcohol is concerned in South Africa, how would we characterize it?
Well, we believe that we do have policies in place, and some of them are fairly robust, and if enforced properly would be very helpful in terms of curbing alcohol harm, but we don't think that they are extensive enough. And we believe that we should be adopting the World Health Organization's 3 best buys of banning or severely limiting advertising, reducing availability of alcohol, and also increasing the price of alcohol so it's less affordable and will then encourage people to drink less than they are at the moment.
South Africa has some of the cheapest beer prices in the world, and so access to alcohol in terms of price, also noting there that it is sometimes a problem. You say our policies are not extensive enough. What would extensive look like?
Well, for example, the minister is talking about moving to implementing the Road Traffic Amendment Bill, which will reduce the blood alcohol content level from 0.05 to 0. What that will mean is that you cannot drink and drive at all. There's no leeway for saying, well, you could have 1 drink, and that wasn't sufficient to make you drunk enough to not drive. If you have a 0 rate, that will actually remove that. So you either drink and not drive, or you drive and you don't drink. So that's a very important one. And that one could be passed right now, because that bill is currently in Parliament. It was put onto the parliamentary register this year, and we're wondering why it hasn't been processed, particularly because the minister has been talking since October last year about the need for this to be implemented. And then we've got the Liquor Amendment Bill, which has also been outstanding since 2017, which would introduce restrictions like increasing the age of drinking, placing more responsibility on liquor traders for the behavior of their customers, also introducing some kind of advertising limits, as well as restricting where alcohol outlets can be. But part of the problem, the minister has called for an increase in legislation, but he himself admitted in his statement yesterday that when he was the Minister of Sport in 2013, he opposed the Control of Marketing of Alcohol Beverages Bill, which would have banned advertising and sponsorships by alcohol companies. And he opposed it because he was the Minister of Sport, and it wasn't in the interest of the sporting community for that ban to be implemented. Now he's the Minister of Transport, and he believes that there should be a ban on advertising. So we need a very clear message from government, which is not determined by sectoral interests, but which is a policy that is geared towards creating a safe environment for everyone in the country, looking after the rights to safety and protection for the population of the country from alcohol harm.
If I'm understanding you correctly, it would sound like you're saying that perhaps the industry is not regulated enough. And on the second issue of what the example that you just made of the minister being the sports minister at the time, especially with regards to public opinion, just how much of an influence does public opinion have on policy making?
Well, we think it should have a much greater influence on policy making. We believe that part of the problem at the moment is that government listens more to the industry than they do to communities. Because our experience is that people at community level are sick and tired of having to deal with the consequences of alcohol-related harm. I mean, we have to remember that only 31% of the population actually drink, of age 15 and above actually drink. So that means the majority of people in the country don't drink. So therefore, the challenges that we are experiencing in the country are being perpetrated by a minority of a minority, because it's not all drinkers who drink harmfully. It's about 60% of drinkers actually drink harmfully. So a minority of a minority are actually holding the rest of the country hostage. So we believe that the community should have a much louder voice. And in fact, we're very concerned that right now, when government was talking about lifting the ban, we said, and the South African Medical Research Council as well said, don't simply lift the ban, but put effective restrictions in place. But at the same time as that was happening, industry was offering to assist with getting trauma units in hospitals more functional, buying PPE equipment and so on. So we are led to believe that government decisions around the lifting of the ban and how they lifted it is in part influenced by the fact that industry is giving money to government. And so that's clouding government's capacity to make objective decisions around regulation. And we think that if the public has a louder voice around the issue, perhaps we can get government to do what needs to be done in the interest of the majority of the country, and not just in the interest of the liquor industry or the sporting community or any other sectoral grouping in the country.
At which point do we take responsibility as individuals? You can have as many policies as you can like, and you can have as much legislation as you like. We still find people drinking and driving. This weekend, for instance, a high number of accidents which have been attributed to drinking and driving. And people do know that if you do that, you'll end up behind bars, but people do it anyway. So self-policing, how important is that as well, where we take responsibility as citizens?
Look, that is very important, and we can never downplay that. But it depends. It also depends on the environment. And one of the important things that the World Health Organization has said, and we fully support this, is that you can educate people, you can raise awareness, you can call on people to be responsible. But if your legislative environment, if the culture of drinking in the country is such that the messaging that people are getting about alcohol, which glamorizes alcohol, which normalizes it, which promotes alcohol, if that message is louder than the message about being responsible, then people are simply going to ignore the law. So that's why it's very important to have the right legislation in place to get rid of advertising. I mean, the example we always like to offer is of what happened with smoking. Because before 1999, with the banning of advertising and the banning of smoking in public places, smoking happened everywhere. There was no control over who smoked, where they smoked, how they smoked, and the impact it had on other people around them. Since 1999, that has completely changed. So even though people are still smoking, they smoke in a way which is much more respectful of other people, which is much more with much more awareness of the fact that they should actually smoke in a way that doesn't impact on the rest of the people around them. And we believe that's what we need to change here. It's not enough for the liquor industry to keep saying, drink responsibly, and then in the meantime, they are advertising alcohol in a way that encourages people to drink, that glamorizes it, that says to people, if you don't drink, then you are boring, or you are not successful, or women aren't going to like you, or men aren't going to like you. So we have to create the right environment, and then you can hold people accountable more easily. It's a question of choice. You know, do people have a choice to drink or not drink, or are they influenced on how they drink by pressure from society, pressure from the industry, pressure from even within the sporting and cultural sector, where you are led to believe that you can't enjoy watching a sporting match without a beer in your hand. That's the kind of thing that we need to begin to change.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Maurice Smithers is with the Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance, South Africa.